Hola, buenas tardes a todos y a todas. Bienvenidos una tarde más a este foro. Bueno, recordaros simplemente unas cuestiones técnicas de cara a seguir la conversación por Zoom. Si queréis que la conversación, que va a ser en inglés, escucharla en castellano con la interpretación, tenéis abajo un icono en el que podéis seleccionar el idioma. La entrevista va a ser de media hora, que va a ser conducida por Amal. Si queréis trasladar alguna pregunta, podéis hacerlo a través del icono de preguntas, las podéis mandar por escrito. Y si queréis también participar en directo, podéis solicitarlo levantando la mano. A partir de esa media hora de primera de entrevista, si hay gente que quiera intervenir en directo, Amal y yo les iremos introduciendo a la conversación. Así que después de estos pequeños detalles técnicos, os dejo con Carlos.
Bueno, gracias Íñigo. Bueno, pues tenemos una tarde más de la caravana, una tarde más con una nueva invitada. Bienvenida Laura, bienvenida a este Bilbao, a este Cairo y a este Berlín virtual. Como te decía antes, fuera de la red, fuera de la antena, bueno, esperamos algún día poder tomar un buen vino aquí en Bilbao, un buen vino vasco, para que pueda disfrutar de nuestra cercanía y de nuestra calidez aquí, ¿no? Yo antes de darle la palabra a Mal y que te va a presentar, quiero decirte que me encanta tu peli, me encanta, yo siempre he sido un poco obrero porque tuve que trabajar muy joven, con 16 años tuve que entrar en la industria y me ha hecho recordar una fábrica como es por dentro. Hay gente, todo el mundo debería saber lo que es una fábrica por dentro. Vivimos en un mundo donde casi todo el mundo está conectado a un ordenador, más ahora, a una oficina, a espacios muy cerrados, a no trabajar con las manos simplemente para tocar los teclados. Y esos traveling de tu fábrica me han hecho sentir otra vez un obrero de una fábrica más. Me ha encantado, me encanta tu cierre, me encanta la canción, lo positiva que es. Me encanta el tema porque una cosa es soñar y otra cosa es llevar a cabo tus sueños, que es lo que les pasaba a estos trabajadoras y trabajadores, que eso es lo difícil. Lo fácil es soñar, lo difícil es hacer realidad nuestros sueños y creo que tú lo has reflejado de una manera exquisita y enhorabuena. Enhorabuena y espero que ahora el público te haga muchas preguntas porque si no, yo tengo muchísimas aquí para hacerte. Así que espero que como no las ocupe el público, las voy a ocupar yo. Bienvenida a este Bilbao virtual, a este Cairo virtual y a este Berlín cultural.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you all, and I'm really happy that you showed my film. And I really have to agree, you know, it was the first time that I actually entered a factory, well, like for a longer period of time. And I keep telling my students also, you know, if we really want to know what life like is, you should work for once in a factory because it's a totally different thing, you know, and I'm working at university. So for me, it was also good, you know, to touch base and actually go there and be with the workers and actually also work with them, you know. That was really, really important to me before I started filming, to understand the entire process, what they're actually doing, how it works. They explained to me everything. So that was really, really important to me to understand their world also.
Thank you, Laura. Bueno, primero, hola. Hola, Laura. Hablas un poco español, ¿no? Hola. Y hola a todas y a todos los oyentes. I'd like to give a small presentation before we start. But by the way, also I worked in a factory something like 20 years ago. Do you hear me well?
I couldn't hear you, so...
Now? And now? Do you hear me?
Now it's better. Right.
Yeah. No, I was telling you that also I worked in a factory something like 20 years ago for 1 year, and it was very hard time.
Yes, yeah. I totally agree. It's really hard, and I wouldn't do it, you know. And actually, I think if they probably wouldn't work in a factory either if they hadn't, you know, if there wouldn't be this need to earn money. So it's really hard work. Yeah. Even though they have a lot of machine, but still, you know, doing every day the same thing, it's a lot of work. Yeah. it's really tiring.
So before we enter we start to speak about your film, let me introduce you. Small introduction. Laura Coppens is a social anthropologist, documentary filmmaker, and curator from Berlin, and is currently based in Bern. Now you are in Berlin, right? But you are based in, okay. She received her PhD through the University Research Priority Program, Asia and Europe, University of Zurich in 2014. In the same year, she joined the Institute of Social Anthropology at the University of Bern as a research assistant, teaching ethnographic media, documentary filmmaking, gender and sexuality, as well as alternative economies. Laura lived and conducted field work in Cuba, Indonesia, and France. Her PhD film project, Children of Srikandi, in 2012, was premiered at the Berlin International Film Festival, and it won many awards, and it was screened also in many other festivals. So I'd like to see this film, Children of Srikandi.
Actually, it was screened at Cinegoag Film Festival in Bilbao.
Ah, really?
I think it was in 2012. Yeah, so that was my first time in Bilbao, and it was really great.
I'd like to watch it. So you are a researcher, you are a professor in the university, writer, director, and producer.
Well, producer, you know, only.
This is actually my question. Why did you decide to produce your film, Taste of Hope? Because I think it's very difficult, especially if you are the writer and the director of the film, and also the film is not an easy film to be produced. So why did you decide to produce it by yourself, strong woman?
You know, I decided to do it myself because exactly, it's not easy, the topic, you know, to get money for a topic like this. And since I'm working at university, I'm not, you know, very well connected to the film industry. And so I was thinking to myself, well, you know, what chances do I have to actually get the film financed? I really want to do it. So I took an alternative route and actually tried to get money through university and research some funding. And I designed the project in the beginning as a research project. Since I'm an anthropologist, I was starting or looking for new topics to research, and I'm really interested in alternative economies. And so I had this idea, okay, if I want to make a new film, I combine it with a research project, and I asked the Swiss government to finance the research. And as a method to do the research, I proposed to make a film. So that was my approach to get the funding. It wasn't a lot of money, but you know, it allowed me, which actually is a luxury for any filmmaker. I got funding for a year and a half to move to Marseille and to make the film. So that was really essential, actually. And then I didn't have enough money for the post-production. And again, through funding for ethnographic film projects I got from the United States, I could finish the film. And so that's how it worked, you know, like I did it also with my other film, with the first film. I always tried to find different routes to finance my films, also to have as much freedom as possible. Because I don't want any producer telling me, you know, this is not good. And, you know, I really like the freedom. Of course, it's much more difficult, but I think I'm more happy afterwards. So I really liked also like to work as a producer, and maybe if I have the time, I actually would love to also support other women filmmakers to realize their own films. but that will be in the future. But, you know, that could be one route I also want to continue working at.
Maybe that's why your film is free from the concepts which sometimes it's censored in the documentary market related to the worker class and this kind of issues. So you feel that you had this kind of freedom to tell what you want and to ask also what is necessary. So sometimes you feel when the film is produced by big channels or big producer, there's something which is not really to the end, you know. So yeah, this is something you can feel in your film, which is really important, and the issue is really important for everyone, not only in Europe. I think also it's a question which we should ask ourselves in every country. It's something like a universal question. And what really I like in your film that normally when you watch these kind of films, it's sometimes it's only documenting of what's going on in the factory without any perspective. And sometimes you see only the perspective of the filmmaker. In your film, you provocate a lot of questions. And they are still without answers because they are very difficult. They need years and years to be answered. For example, this kind of ideas and principles, left-wing principles. How can you produce with these kind of ideas, but the market is so different? What is common between us as workers? Are they the ideas or such the work or only the work? You know, so you can see in the film that there are some workers who are only there because of the work, not more, and some other who are struggling for the ideas. The work is part of their ideas, and they are struggling to be free and to. So I think it's big questions, and the good thing that you are provocating these questions in a very indirect way. It makes the audience think about it, and it's a big dilemma. It's it's really difficult to be answered, and especially now in our moment. So I would like to ask you if this concept was really clear in your mind from the first moment, or the initial idea was changed during the filmmaking and the editing of the film.
I think the fact that I'm an anthropologist also helps to go really with an open mind to a place. And I really didn't know, I didn't really research a lot about the factory as such. Of course, I did research, you know, the circumstances, how they became a cooperative, about their struggle, but I didn't really know what I was expecting. So my aim was to really go there, get to know the people, and then I see what's going to happen. So the film came to me more or less, you know, and for me, it was really important to don't fall into the trap and make a left-wing propaganda film, because that often happens a lot. And these films exist also about this factory. For me, it was really important to pose questions, as you said, you know. That's also my research spirit, you know. You don't normally, when you do research, you don't have like a finished answer. You come back with much more questions, and these questions are really important. And you know, exactly, I didn't want to be too direct, but like, because if you watch the film, and I want to keep the audience engaged also, you know, to, you know, give a little bit of food, and then they have to finish thinking for themselves, you know, what they make up of out of it. I didn't want to judge neither, you know. I just wanted to present with my camera, because I also did the camera, what I was aiming at, to give the feeling that the audience approaches the factory also through my eyes. So, for example, the concept, and that came in the editing, to show the doors, you know, because the factory is huge. So I had the problem, how can I show the different aspects of work? And so I had this idea, and I was inspired by Frederick Wiseman, the big master of observational cinema, who also makes a lot of films about institutions. And I like the way he entered a room and, you know, like very abruptly, and then he leaves very abruptly. So that was exactly my experience, because the factory was as big. I was, you know, running around with my camera, and, you know, I looked around, where can I film? So I opened the door, I entered, okay, there's a discussion, you know, I just stay here. And then I leave again, and that's what I wanted to transgress also in the editing, you know, that you have the feeling that you explore the factory with myself, basically more or less at the same time. So that was the whole idea.
And also there is no one interview, direct interview. So this is something also very interesting, because it reflects that you were there for a long time, and they got used to live with the camera. So I would like to ask you, did it take long to be there in the factory with them, and to be able in such a way, because it's a difficult way to film?
I had I discussed this with a friend of mine. He's also a filmmaker, and he has a totally different strategy. When he films, he comes right away with his camera and he starts filming. But I had the feeling I cannot do this in this factory. You know, that didn't feel right to me, because one, they're used to a lot of journalists. You know, during my time, during 18 months I spent there, I saw like numerous TV screens, TV teams who filmed reportages for French TV channels. So they're very used to cameras all the time. And I wanted to approach it differently. I wanted, you know, them to ask me when I can start filming, or when I do start filming. And that's what happened. You know, I started getting to know them. I went there actually every day. I had my camera there, but I didn't use it. And, you know, one week I worked in the laboratory. The other week I worked at the assembly line. And at one point, after 3 months, one worker was asking me, Laura, what the hell are you doing here? We were thinking you're going to make a film. And so at that moment, I knew, okay, now it's time for me to get my camera and start filming. Now they are ready. So for me, it was really important to have this relationship with the workers. And I think you can see it also in the film. You know, at one point, they don't care anymore. You know, I'm just also there. You know, of course, I'm not a part of them, but, you know, in a way, I do my work. And so from the perspective of work and workers, so they respected me. Okay, I'm there to work with my camera. I just do my job, and that's how it is. And so that was really helpful for me also to film like some discussions which are a little bit more difficult. But yeah, because I spent so much time there and was really interested in all aspects of their work life, I think that helped a lot.
Also, I like this kind of way that sometimes you entered in the middle of the discussion.
Yeah.
And as if there's nothing is happening, like for the camera, they don't even watch the camera, they look at the camera and they continue their discussion. So I think also it gave the film a certain kind of, how to say it, like rhythm, and you feel it through. You feel it everything through, and because it's true, there is nothing staged in the film. So I would like to ask you if when you were making this film, for which kind of audience you were thinking?
Good.
You're talking or you're making this film? For whom you wanted to?
Well, I had like 2 or let's say 3 general audiences. It was really important to me to make a film the workers can also use. afterwards. So because maybe that leads to another question, why did I choose the style, the observational style of filming? Because there are many films about factories and they're more, about the aesthetics, it's more about the machines, and because most factories are very impressive visually. And for me, you could approach a film like this more experimental. And then I thought, okay, what's the point? The worker gonna watch it and say, yeah, what the hell? That has nothing to do with that. So I could have also done a TV style film with talking heads, interviews, but I didn't do it because I observed the TV teams interviewing the workers all the time. And I realized, okay, all the time they're asking the same workers and all the time they're getting the same answers. So it was very, clear cut. And I wanted to interrupt this flow because I didn't want to have these answers. They were like cookie cutter answers, they always very positive. And I knew, because I was observing the real situation in the factory, I knew the whole thing, the whole project is much more complex. And because I'm an anthropologist, I'm exactly interested in these complexities and, also in, exactly this dilemma you mentioned before. How can you work and produce in a capitalistic system with your ideals and values in mind that are very different? So that was my main interest, basically. So the first audience is the workers also. The second audience, of course, is, everybody like you were watching here. And the third also, I'm using the film for teaching in university. When I talk about, alternative economies and cooperatives, I think it's really helpful also for the students to, where you can teach straightforward economics with this kind of film, because a lot of economic questions are raised there and discussed there. So it's really helpful for many aspects.
And what do you think about the possibilities of funding this kind of films, which deals with the issues related to the worker class, and it's not fashionable enough for the documentary market? So I don't know which your experience in this kind of marketing your film and screenings in festivals and so on, and even funding it.
Actually, I'm quite surprised because the film was, in my mind, it was successful. I didn't really expect it because, I haven't a big budget. I haven't had a big budget, and it's not super sleek, the production, which I actually like, because also the form and the production value reflects, this kind of imperfect project the whole factory is. So I really like this fact of imperfection in a way. And I think the film is successful because it's honest in this way. And especially in this time of the coronavirus, I think people ask a lot of questions about, how we want to live in the future. And now maybe we should change our economic system. And I think cooperatives and this kind of worker self-management is part of a new story also. It's an old practice, but it could lead to something new. And that's why I think a lot of people are interested in this kind of film at the moment. And I have the feeling more people also reflect work differently because we are stuck at home and we work from home. And, this whole topic of work and how do we want to work in the future, I think is coming more and more, and it's becoming more fashionable also to talk about it. In terms of funding, I don't know, since I'm not working really in the, in this mainstream film industry, I cannot talk about it. I try to really always think outside the box. But interesting, after this film, after making this film and showing the film in Switzerland, I got an offer of a production company to produce my next film, but I don't think I'm gonna do it actually. I'm gonna do it myself again because I want to have the last word, but yeah.
I would make my last question before we open for the question for the audience, and I will make it with your last sentence in the film. How do we need to work today so we may live in a better world tomorrow? Do you have an answer for this?
I think, as I said before, working in a cooperative could be one part of the answer, and definitely try to produce more locally, consume more locally, and try to also think about solidarity in a different way. It's solidarity. We hear this word a lot right now, but it involves a lot of aspects. And what I really liked also, or what was stunning to me, the support the workers get from the community, from the local community.
Yeah.
So they couldn't have done it, without the consumers, and they don't have any marketing money, as we can see in the film. But they try to convince with the quality of their product. It's not easy because you have to re-educate the consumers who are used to like this chemical products like Lipton and so on. Yeah, I think more solidarity, thinking differently. Also, I mean, what I also clearly see now, work and epidemics and climate change, they are all global problems. So we have to find a global solution, and work and production could be one part of it. We have to find a way to scale it in a way, because by now it's really like very locally. It's basically a factory that works mainly in France. But the most important thing, that this idea of fighting and work autonomously should spread like a virus, actually. And that's what I can also observe. The factory in Marseille was a big inspiration to other factories and to other workers, and I think that's really beautiful and important.
And as much as you make films like this, it could be more spread.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now I would like to invite our audience to make questions, and we'd love to see your faces and to hear your voices if you can.
Por el momento, Amal, nadie ha solicitado la palabra, así que invitamos, como dices, a la gente a participar. En cuanto alguien solicite la palabra, yo me conectaré por aquí y te pediré paso. Bueno,
yo creo que Carlos sí que tiene...
Tenemos, perdona, nuestra llamada ha surtido efecto, entonces tenemos por aquí una persona, Ainhoa, que también se conectó el otro día, que le vamos a dar paso, ¿vale? Igual que el otro día, Ainhoa, verás que se te desconecta tu conexión y regresas por aquí de nuevo. Vamos con ello. Ok, ahora enseguida se le desconecta y se le está conectando de nuevo. Te pedirá permisos tu micrófono y tu cámara para conectarte. Puedes conectar tu cámara. Estupendo. Adelante, Ainhoa. Muchas gracias.
Hola,
hello, Laura. Thank you, and Amal. Hello, Laura, and thank you very much for the film. I really, really like the topic and the way you show, as Amal was saying, and you were both saying before, that you don't give the answers, no? You just show everything and let people think. I was wondering, when you were saying that when the workers were interviewed by the television, they were always showing this positive image, no, of the cooperative and their work. So how did they feel about your film, where you also show the challenges? No, you don't only show the nice picture, but you also show that there are some challenges ahead.
Thank you so much for your question. I think it's a really good question, and because I had a big discussion with them about it. First, they were not used to this kind of film, observational, no interviews. So that was new to them. But they really liked it, because they told me, it feels more like they experience also the factory. So it feels closer to their reality. And so when they watched the film, they were actually the first ones to watch it. They were like, you know, what will people think? They were a bit skeptical. But then we discussed, you know, I was saying, no, if you only show the positive side, at one point, nobody believes you because it's so incredible. So, and what makes you more credible and more human in a way is all the problems and also sometimes the failures you can see. And that's also much more interesting for the audience because, as we all know, you know, through mistakes and failures, we learn. So in a way, someone told me, you know, this film is like a manual to learn how to take over a factory and make it run, you know, with all this different kinds of problems. You know, they were not happy in the beginning, but when we discussed it, and I took it very seriously, I also asked him, you know, if there's something you want to take out, I'm open to discuss it. Of course, you are never happy if you have to do it as a filmmaker. But, you know, for me, it was really important that they also find themselves in the film. So, but then when I explained, you know, why I chose to also show the difficult parts, I think they understood it. And now they're super happy about the film.
Yeah, actually, as a spectator, I have this feeling that I was very close to them, you know, like, I don't know, I get to know them and you feel their struggle, but you also feel their willingness to overcome it. So it's a very nice message. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
question.
Aina.
Watching the film.
We have two more questions. I don't know if Inigo, do you have any other?
Bueno, de momento no tenemos nadie más que quiera solicitar. Están por ahí las preguntas. Gracias.
We have two questions. One from Leire Pascual. Antes de nada, felicidades por la película. En mi caso, la historia me ha generado sentimientos enfrentados. Por un lado, cierta tristeza ante la debilidad de todo el proceso, por constatar la enormidad del reto de sobrevivir en un mundo capitalista, competitivo, etc. Y por otro lado, alegría por ver la ilusión en el trabajo, ver un sueño caminando y tratando de vencer las adversidades. Sin embargo, creo que en definitiva con la película tratas de ofrecer un mensaje de optimismo. ¿Es así?
Again, I leave that open to the audience. You know, I called the film Taste of Hope. And the first question I always ask after I screened the film is, you know, do you feel hopeful or not? Do you think it's a hopeful film or not? And you have, you know, as many answers as audience sitting in the cinema. And for me, I mean, there's always hope. You know, there's a saying, hope dies last. Of course, it's difficult, but, you know, I'm really surprised that they actually still exist. And that's so, like amazing. You know, they really struggle hard every day. And they're there and they're, you know, it's going better and better every month. So I think there's hope. But of course, you know, trying to exist and to survive in the capitalistic is super, super difficult. And again, I always say, you know, if we want this kind of projects to survive, it's also our responsibility as consumers to buy their products. Of course, it's difficult, you know, outside of France, but there are possibilities. For example, I helped to set up a distribution network between Berlin and Marseille. So you can actually find the tea now here as well. But yeah, I mean, I also had the same feeling. Sometimes I was really frustrated when I was, you know, seeing the problems. But then again, and if you ask them also, for them, they are much more happier working now because they know who they are working for. So it's for themselves, and they also know they're proud of their products, you know, because they know the quality is much better than what they did before. So I think they are happy, but of course, sometimes when you are stuck in reality and all the problems, they're not very happy. But it's like life, you know. We know it. It's like and they're like a big family, so there's fights, and I think that also makes it very human and allows us to connect also with their experiences.
But I tell you, personally, I felt this taste of hope, especially with the crowdfunding campaign, because it was like a magic moment in their life, because I think for the first time they felt that they are supported and that they are not alone. And I think this is the taste of hope when you are able to connect with your people, and when you feel this kind of support, and it's the struggle of everyone, not only the people who work in the factory. So it was like a magic moment, opening the envelope.
Yeah.
And surprising, and the guy was surprised by the amount, especially the 1,000 euro. And even with the 50 euro was the wow. You feel like it's small support, but it's really honest, and it has a big meaning. So yes, I think it. I felt this taste of hope. It's not it's not an closed struggle. It has future, I think. We have a, yeah.
And I mean, especially the crowdfunding, it's amazing. It's still continuing, you know, it's going on for 2 years, and there's still people. I think there are some people who give money every month.
Really? So it's not only for a certain period. No. It was not,
So they continue because they have this cash flow problem, you know, which is also explained a little bit in the film. They need a certain amount of money to pay the bills, but all the, you know, for the tea, they have to, if they buy the tea, they have to pay it like immediately. But if they produce or sell the tea, they don't get the money at the same time. So there's always a hole. And so they ask the consumers and their supporters, you know, to help them to fill the hole, because they don't get help from the banks. Okay. Otherwise, it would be much easier. But since nobody wants to support them, you know, from the capitalistic system, even the cooperative banking system doesn't trust them enough. So they had the idea, okay, we then, you know, we try crowdfunding, and it's even much better because it goes directly to us. We built this relationship also with our supporters. And it was really touching also to see, you know, sometimes, you know, they really had like tears in their eyes when they were reading the letters of support. And you know, that also keeps them going because it's so difficult. And if they know, okay, we're not doing this only for us, but actually there are a lot of people out there who want the same thing, you know, then it helps them to continue.
And it is a kind of alternative funding, like your film. It was funded also in an alternative way. I think, yeah, Inigo, you have...
Tenemos por aquí María Sun Olano. De la misma manera, María Sun, verás que se te desconecta y automáticamente se te vuelve a conectar en nuestra conversación, ¿vale? Así que no te asustes cuando se te desconecte. Muy bien. Tenemos también otro espectador más en cola que quiere preguntar, así que le damos paso una vez termine María Sun. Vale, María Sun, tendrás que activar tu... Vale.
Tengo que activar el vídeo.
Eso es, tienes que activar ahora tu cámara. Estupendo, María Sun. Vale.
Nuestra fiel espectadora.
Por ahí te vemos, muy bien, adelante.
Buenas tardes, me ha gustado mucho tu película, me parece, ya te lo han dicho, pero lo repito, me parece muy honrada, lo planteas todo tal y como es, ¿no? Entonces, hay una cosa, bueno, hay dos cosillas. Una, me parece que lo que planteas muy bien, ¿no? O sea, al principio toda esta lucha por la fábrica, ¿no? En los momentos de las huelgas y tal, es muy fácil mantenerse, pero luego hay un proceso ya que dura en el tiempo, en el que es difícil, tú lo planteas en un momento, ¿no? Hay trabajadores que, bueno, pues que les gusta casi que se les dirija, ¿no? Que lo difícil que es la autonomía para algunas personas, ¿eh? Y como dentro de ellos también tiene que haber líderes, entonces planteas eso por un lado. Y luego hay otro aspecto que me gustaría comentar, que coincide con la película de ayer, ¿no? es el hecho de que solo los productores, los artesanos, los agricultores, si no hay un compromiso de los consumidores, es muy difícil salir adelante, porque miramos los 20 céntimos en el kilo de tomate o en el té y luego gastamos 5 euros en tomar una cerveza. O sea, es una falta de sensibilidad, de ver cómo el que produce la materia prima tiene unos costes que, bueno, y entonces no valoramos la calidad, el que no tenga productos artificiales, ¿no? Entonces, o cambiamos un poco, porque ellos solos va a ser muy difícil en esta lucha. Entonces, no sé si ahora que hemos tenido muchos días en casa para pensar, si esto nos habrá ayudado.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you for nice words and comments. I really appreciate this. And it's great that, you know, I can see you at home and talk to you. That's really great. I also was really curious about coming to this topic of autonomy, you know. I think we expect that if you have a project like this, workers change from one day to the other. But, you know, there are some workers who actually work for 30 years for Unilever, which is a very hierarchical way of working. So they were used to get orders, and all in the sudden, you know, they had to decide for themselves. And of course, you have to unlearn this capitalistic way of working and functioning, and relearn, you know, to take also responsibility. And of course, there's always people who prefer to be led, and also, you know, yeah, they don't want to think for the factory, which is okay. I think it's fair enough, you know, but they have to figure out how to function. And what I also can see, and maybe we also could see it in the film, even though there is no official hierarchy between the workers, there's always someone who's more leader than another person. And the one guy we see with the white hair and the Che Guevara, I call him, he actually was very important for the entire fight for the factory and to become a cooperative. He's like the union leader. And during Unilever times, he was always the one who you know, said to the workers, we have to organize, you know, we cannot lose our jobs like this, you know, and you need someone like him who's more idealistic also in a way, more political, to get the others going. And but of course you have always people who are not politicized in a way, but in the process of you know, building this cooperative, they're becoming more and more political also. And that is very beautiful to see how this entire process happens. Yeah, and I agree totally with you. You know, it's also our responsibility as consumers if we want to change something.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias, María Asun.
Gracias.
Te devuelvo como espectadora. Y tenemos por aquí también otra persona que quiere intervenir, Jonander Areses. De nuevo, Jonander, lo mismo, verás que se te desconecta y automáticamente se te conecta a nuestra conexión. Vale, vamos con ello. Tendrás que habilitar tu micrófono y tu cámara para que te podamos ver y te podamos escuchar.
No.
Sí, ahora mismo te escuchamos. Tendrás que habilitar tu cámara también para que te veamos. Hola, Jonander. Vale, tienes que habilitar Te he pedido permiso para habilitar tu micrófono. A ver, tienes que habilitar tu micrófono para que te podamos escuchar.
¿Ahora?
Ahora mismo, eso es. Adelante.
Vale.
Gracias.
Bueno, pues enhorabuena, Laura, por la película. Me ha parecido muy interesante o sea, el reflejo que das, ¿no? De por dentro de una fábrica y tal. Y tenía dos preguntas. Por un lado, quería saber si habéis tenido algún tipo de reacción por parte de Unilever ante este trabajo. creo que la industria alimentaria es uno de los grandes problemas del sistema capitalista en el que vivimos, en muchos aspectos, ¿no? Las consecuencias que tiene. Entonces, me gustaría saber cómo recibe un trabajo de este tipo, o sea, un documental de este tipo, una multinacional como esa. Y por otro lado, me gustaría saber si en la fábrica en algún momento se plantearon el tema del origen de las materias primas. El té es una materia prima que no se produce en Europa. Se menciona en un momento que es de China, pero bueno, como persona que intenta consumir comercio justo, pues me ha faltado un poco eso, ¿no? Entonces quería saber hasta qué punto la conciencia de una problemática global como esta, había esa conciencia dentro de la fábrica, ¿no? Y ya está.
Thank you for your question. So I start with the first one. No, we didn't have any reactions from Unilever yet, but who knows? I'm working at, distributing the film in French television, a shorter version. So maybe then they will react. But I think for Unilever, this factory is far too small. They don't take them seriously because they are not a big player in the market. They're very local. They're not available even in the north of France because it's really hard to get your product into supermarkets. It's super hard if you don't have the money behind you, if you don't know the right people. So they try hard, but it's really localized. So I don't think Unilever will take them seriously. But interestingly, because I'm still in contact with the workers, and I talked to one of them last week on the phone, and he told me, you know what, I have the feeling that at one point Unilever will approach us to produce the tea bags for them, because I don't know if you got this, but the factory is not only producing their own products, but they're also producing for other brands, for other supermarkets like Auchan and Carrefour. So they were thinking, because there are not many factories who are able to do this in France. There's one other factory who also can produce, the packaging and the tea bags. So he was telling me, he's curious if at one point Unilever approaches the factory to produce their Lipton teas. But we will see. And the second question, yeah, that is a really difficult one, the raw materials. Of course, if climate change or climate warming is going on like this, I'm sure tea will also grow in France. But at this point, and because, black tea and green tea is a huge market and they have to earn money. So they decide, okay, we're gonna sell it. But of course they know about all the problems, but they don't have really the money to buy like fair trade products. And also, if you really know a lot about the food industry and also the fair trade label, often we know it's really difficult. Even the so-called fair trade labels are not holding up to their values. So they try to get to know the producers as much as possible. And there's a project that I hope will come into life. They are working with the tea cooperative for green tea in Vietnam. They also went there twice to see the plants, the quality, but it's really hard to get it licensed in France, to get the organic labeling. So it's also really expensive, but they're, of course, if they would have the money and the opportunities and the context, they would only produce like fair trade organic tea. And they're working on it, but it's hard, but at least they're aware of the problem. And that's why they have this other project, this organic tea, which only comes from the region. Like I also show in the film, like the lime tea. Mm-hmm. That's one project very dear to their heart. So they really want to shorten the ways, and this is only like 2.5 hours from the factory. So they also, the workers go there to help with the harvesting of the plants. So, and that is a really beautiful relationship. And they try to, for, you know, chamomile, they also buy it locally. But then because they have to sell a lot of tea bags, a big amount of tea in order to pay all their bills, and the organic tea market or the herbs in France, they're not enough, you know, so they only have very small productions, but it's not enough. And because of Unilever, a lot of the organic tea production had to stop in France because it wasn't profitable anymore. And what the factory, actually, the workers helped to relaunch this very old tradition of lime tea production. So with the help of the workers and the factory, they bring it back to the local production. And I think that's a really important project. So yeah, but they're working on it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations.
Laura, thank you. Laura, I think we'll stay more than 1 hour because we still have 3
No
questions.
problem.
Okay.
I have time.
There is a question from Eva Ruiz. Sorry, Eva, because she sent the questions something like 20 minutes ago. So now we answer it. Eva asked, ¿vieron la peli en la fábrica? ¿Qué comentarios recibió si es que fue así? Gracias por la película, me encantan los debates que se dan al interior de la fábrica. Creo que son debates que tenemos en trabajos que hacen el intento de no tener jefes o líderes, aunque siempre los hay.
Right. I think I already answered the question, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Sergio, buenas tardes, muchas felicidades por la película. Mi pregunta es, ¿cuál ha sido el papel del Estado, gobierno, en esta lucha que están manteniendo para mantener la fábrica? En la película que vimos ayer no se presenta cuál ha sido esa responsabilidad de los gobiernos.
Yes, that's a very good and important question. And I think that's also unique to France. Actually now, because the whole takeover of the factory took place in a very specific time, also in a specific time frame, during the presidentship of Hollande. And now under Macron, this wouldn't be possible anymore because they changed the law. Under Hollande, there was still the law that, you know, if the workers can prove that the factory is closed on the or only on the argument that Unilever wants to make more profit and relocate to Poland, then it's not legal in a way, because you cannot relocate a profitable factory. There was, because this factory, as in the beginning is also mentioned, was the most or the largest factory in Europe. So they were very profitable. There was no reason to close the factory. And that actually was the argument the lawyers used to win the court case. And it took a long time, and they had a great lawyer, and they managed to win the court case. They got $20 million euros from Unilever to create the cooperative. 7 or 8 million are the machines, and the rest went into, you know, recreating the brand, organizing everything. So the state was really important in a ways, because at that point they were the right laws. Also very important, and that's also unique to France in a way, the support of the union, the communist union was very supportive. And you can also see in the film, you know, the boss of the CGT, Martinez, he's also in the film. He took this project as like their baby project, you know. For them, it was also really important to make it succeed. So they got all the support well, they gave all the support they could give to make it happen. And also, I mean, still today, actually, the CGT, the union, is buying a lot of tea from them. You know, they circulate the tea in their militant networks and unionist networks. So they're very important players. Without them, it couldn't happen. So and that's why, for example, there's another factory that is still occupied in Greece. Viome, they're producing organic soaps, and they have no support whatsoever, neither from the state, neither from the unions. So they only rely on the consumers again and on the local community. And so these two examples are very, very different. So yeah, I think that's also the success of the factory in Marseille. So because there are so many different players who help them to succeed.
Thank you. The last question comes from Guillermo Monteforte. Te felicito, Laura, por la cercanía y la honestidad de tu documental. Los retos que confrontan en la fábrica son tan comunes que nos ayuda a mirarnos como en un espejo. Me quedé con ganas de conocer a algunos de los protagonistas en sus vidas afuera de la fábrica, su vida personal, sus familias. Fue una decisión constante no mostrar esa parte de las personas que aparecen en tu documental.
Thank you for your question. First of all, you know, the factory is open to everybody. So if you want to meet them, they're very happy once we can travel again, you know, they're always very, very happy to receive visitors and to show you around. I was considering it, but then I thought, well, for me, the film is more about the collective. I didn't want to single out one certain worker because for me, it would be two different stories. You know, for me, the main protagonist is also the factory and the cooperative as a collective. And of course, you see that I feature some workers more than others, but that actually reflects the relationship I had to certain workers. You know, with some I was much closer, and naturally it appears in the film. And secondly, you know, because during the occupation, I mean, it was 3.5 years that they occupied the factory, and they got a lot of trouble with the police, you know. And
Sorry, Laura, did you film it during this period?
No, I didn't film this, but others filmed it. So there is material, and there's also film about the occupation as such.
Okay.
So, and a lot of, you know, families, there were a lot of divorces, a lot of family broke apart, and they were very sensitive about their personal lives. And I also felt, you know, they didn't really want me to film them at home, because home is home for them and work is work. And I wanted to respect it. And I think, you know, for me, it's not relevant, because the focus was really on the work process and how they relate to each other as cooperative of workers. But it's great that you want to get to know them. You know, I also like this desire that you can sympathize with the workers and, you know, yeah, want to know more about them, which is also a really important thing.
Thank you, Laura. Now I would like to invite Carlos to join us. Hi. Yeah. Que no se oye nada.
Hoy me he quedado sin tiempo, pero Laura, te pienso ver otra vez, no sé si en Berna, en Bilbao o en Berlín, cuando podamos ir. No tengo prisa, cuando lo podamos hacer, pero esa copa está pendiente, ese trago está pendiente para seguir, porque yo tenía muchas preguntas para ti hoy, y no referente a la película ya cuenta muchas cosas. Creo que esta película, lo has dicho antes, es una película muy útil para indagar en el ser humano, para indagar en nuestros sueños, para indagar en nuestras inquietudes, para indagar en nuestros miedos. Es muy gracioso ese miedo que hay a los profesionales en la película, al diseñador o diseñadora, al de marketing, cuando el marketing puede servir para todo lo contrario. Como decía la oyente de antes, ¿cómo llegar al público? Bueno, pues el marketing, hay un marketing social, hay un marketing también para hacer bien las cosas, ¿no? Bueno, se quedan muchas cosas en el tintero, pero yo te voy a volver a ver, el público no sé, yo espero verte no sé cuándo, si en el Film Visible, si en nuestro festival o en cualquier otro lugar. Sí, darte las gracias, Laura, no por la peli, sino porque seas esa mujer que ha decidido coger una cámara para contar cosas. Yo lo decía estos días que para KCD y para el Festival de Cine Invisible y la Caravana no son importantes solo las películas, es mucho más importante, soy mucho más importante vosotras, las realizadoras, que las películas en sí. Y te animamos no a que hagas tú sola, sino que seas productora de otras. De ese tema ya hablaremos también despacio más adelante. Y me gustaría acabar como acabas tú con tu peli, que acabas con esa canción tan positiva. Creo que es un buen momento la crisis que estamos viviendo para poner el contador a cero. Creo que es un muy buen momento para implicarnos como sociedad. Creo que en las soluciones de las crisis debemos estar la ciudadanía. Creo que en la crisis anterior que vivimos, por lo menos en España, la ciudadanía tuvo muy poco para poder decidir cómo quería salir de esa crisis. Y creo que ahora se nos presenta una oportunidad global, porque lo tenemos aquí. Ahora estamos en el Cairo, sé que nos está escuchando México, estamos aquí en Euskadi, y tú entre París, entre Berlín y Berna. En esa implicación creo que podemos hacer muchísimas cosas y, como tú bien decías, como bien el cantante decía de la peli, vamos a poner este contador a cero y vamos a hacer muchísimas cosas. Animaros también al resto, al público mañana. Mañana nos vamos a Brasil. Creo que también tenemos no solamente una historia muy interesante, sino también otra mujer como tú, como Amal y como otras muchas mujeres que no se ven, muy interesantes, que nos van a contar muchísimas cosas. Bienvenidas a la caravana, continuamos en esta caravana y os esperamos mañana. Un abrazo y hasta mañana.
Muchas gracias, Laura. Hasta luego. Chao.
Thank you to all of you. I mean, you asked me for who the film is, it's also for you, because for filmmakers, you know, who also want to change the world, people like you are very, very important. And I applaud you for your wonderful and great work to all of you. And I really appreciate your time that you know, picked up the film and gave me the opportunity to discuss. And of course, I mean, what would be a film without its audience? You know, for me also, this is very important to everybody who watched the film, who engaged in the question and answers. It's really, really important to me, and it gives hope, really, to more solidarity, and that we can continue together to build a better world, you know, more sustainable, more with more solidarity. And I hope to see you at one point, you know. Actually, I realized that all cities you mentioned begin with a B: Bilbao, Berlin, Bern. So it will be one of them, and I would love to come to Bilbao, maybe also to another, you know, session of the caravan, to watch also other films and to get to know all the other amazing women filmmakers. So that would be great. Thank you to all of you.
We'll see you very soon.
And then we drink some wine.
Yeah, please. Bye, Laura.
Bye, bye. Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. Buenas noches.
Hasta mañana. Chao.